So we'll have it in 3 parts.
That's perfect. Okay, folks, so we're going to, I'm just going to check if Noreen is here. So again, we'll continue in the same format. And again, I'll be stopping you after the 8 minutes, and we have a lot to get through. So hopefully we're going to try and finish at 1 o'clock to give people lunch and to be back for Alex at 2. So we're going to try and just keep to the 8 minutes. So I'll pass over to you, Noreen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Annette. The last time I did one of these, I ran into trouble with the PowerPoint, so I've pre-recorded it. It's 9 minutes, so I'm going to skip a little bit. I took a little bit of a different viewpoint on it. Instead of looking at a module level, what has been sort of doing my head in the last few weeks is at a program level, and that is in relation to running live events. Live public events with external speakers, which is different to running it in-house. So we've done 2 so far. One was in December for the BA in Community Development and Youth Work. I'm on both these program boards. We had 2 external speakers and the rest were internal. And then we're running another one on Tuesday. Digital West, so sign up digitalwest.biz, I'll get a plug in. That's part of the Masters of Science in Digital Media and Marketing. So I have done sort of steps as to how you go about it. So I'm going to play it from there. And it's actually the last 2 minutes at the end that's the most important.
Excellent, thank you.
So there are a number of steps involved. So I'm just going to step you through the steps and a few of the pitfalls of what can happen. So first of all, when you have external presenters involved, very first thing to do is set up a team within Microsoft Team and invite each of those presenters into that team. By doing that, you're giving them a guest presence within the our internal Microsoft Teams environment, and it just makes the next steps more easier. So within your create your new team and invite your own people in. Now inquire of them if they currently use Teams. If they currently use Teams, well then use the email address that they use, that they sign in with their teams. If they want to use a different email address, there can be conflicts. So once you've that set up, then it's quite straightforward to go in and schedule live events. So rather than going into when you go into a new meeting, rather than go into a regular scheduled meeting, you just select the option for live event. The next step is quite familiar. You give it a title. The location is going to be online, so that's fine. You can leave that. So it's title that's important. And over this side here, on the right-hand side, you invite your people in. So you will invite in the people, whether they're presenters or producers. Generally, the person that's organizing it is going to be the producer. You will have control of starting and stopping the event. You will share the videos, share participants, share active desktops, and select the outlay. So you are, the producer is the Bridget Jones of the environment, and you decide what goes live. The presenters, we'll see in a minute, have a different display. You already have them listed in your team, so they will come in as a guest, and then you assign roles as a producer or a presenter. For the next, when you hit next, you will get the option, and it's a public event, so you select public. You can leave all the rest of the aspects on the default and just click on Q&A if you're deciding to have a Q&A. The recordings are really great because once your event is over, you can download the recording from here. And then you just select the schedule there in the bottom right-hand corner, and that schedules your live event. It will automatically send an email to everybody that you have identified as a presenter or producer, and they accept it, and it automatically goes into their calendar the same as any other type of a meeting. When you have your meeting scheduled, you can get the attendees link from within the schedule or within your calendar. So if you go into your appointment on your calendar, you will see the invite attendees. So if you double click on that, you'll get an attendees link, and that's what you distribute. You distribute that link. Only your presenters and your producers will come in on the join button. So never email or never forward on the email to attendees because it's the attendees link you want to send. Here we have the producer's interface. So the producer, the presenter, and the attendee, they all have 3 different interfaces. So the producer is the, go back to Bridget Jones, the person that's organizing, who sees what goes out live. So here's the presenter. You have down the bottom, you'll see all your presenters involved in the meeting. You will see any content they've shared out. Here you prep or you cue what's going to go live. When you can have either the presenter on their own, or you can have the presenter with their screen share. When you are happy for them to go right live, you hit the send live here, and then it goes over onto the screen on the right hand side. So once you are live, you will see this red button on the right hand side there. You only hit that red button when it is over, because once you start a live event, it goes live, obviously, but once you end it, that's it. You don't restart it again. It's over. Wait 30 seconds and then you can speak or hang up or turn on your cameras. The presenter's view is slightly different in that it's more of a traditional Microsoft Teams interface. But the important thing is this strong red line around the box will tell you as a presenter who's live and who's going out live, so you'll be aware of that. The interface other than that is pretty much the same. Your camera, your audio, your screen share. You will have you'll see the other presenters and producers listed here. You will have a Q&A and you will have a chat session as well. The attendees view is different in that they just see, this is what they will see before the event starts. So the live event has not yet started. When it does start, it will automatically stream to them. They actually have the power to stop and start. So even if they tune in, they can bring it back to the start. If they're 5 minutes late, they can bring it back to the start and watch it from the start. So they have that control. And through Q&A up here in the top right, they can leave their own questions. Now, if they put in a comment, it is moderated from the live event side. So you can see comments coming in and the producer or presenter can decide, okay, will I, you moderate it basically, and then you have the option to publish it out or not. So that's a whistle-stop tour of Microsoft Teams live event. There are a few recommendations and I'll go through them. Minimum bandwidth, 1.2 megabits per second. You can check that as one of the options on the toolbar. No other streaming sites are being used at the time. So if you have a presenter on, make that point to them that if they're sharing bandwidth and there's somebody downstairs, or there's 2 or 3 downstairs sharing net or watching Netflix or any other streaming interface, it will cause connection problems. So you've asked them quite nicely to kick anybody off in the house. A wired internet connection would be preferable over a wireless. If you're having audio or video content features available, it's only available on Microsoft Windows OS, so you will have difficulty if people are using other devices or other interfaces or operating systems. Once a live event has started, that's it, it's going, it's live. It cannot be stopped and restarted. Generally, the producer can unmute people, but I personally prefer to leave the mute and unmute responsibility to the individual so that they're more conscious of it. Don't ever touch end until you're sure it has ended. All presenters and producers need to join using the desktop application.
Is Noreen on mute?
There, I have it now. I've stopped. That's just the last bit. Is just there is difficulties if people come in on Linux or Chromebooks and Bluetooth devices or that. So that's pretty much it. It's a good facility if you want to do that type of an activity, but it does come. There are a number of other little niches and clicks with it, and Carina has come out and helped me in figuring a few bits out, and a great support guy from Pakistan has helped figuring stuff out as well. So it's about when you're trying to do stuff, it's reaching out to the experts or people that have tried these scenarios before to come up with how do you best approach it. And the difficulty was it was external people, which brings more complication.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot, Noreen. That was really interesting. And the live event, I'm hoping to attend your live event as well next week. So well done on all of them so far. So thanks a lot. So we'll move on to the next Ulrich and then Marilla after that, if that's okay.
Perfect. Thanks, Annette.
Hi, Ulrich. How are you?
Wait now. Second. Just share my screen here. Just let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can see it. And if your voice is a bit low, Ulrich, if you just...
Yeah. Is it better now?
Better, yeah, a little bit better, yeah.
Okay. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank Annette and Carina for all their guidance and advice during the last year and for the opportunity to present here today. As part of the digital teaching and learning module, I looked at the module of modern classics and global cuisine, which is a very practical module in nature. Okay. And in the past, most of the communication for that module with regards to learning, assessment, feedback, and so on, took mainly place during the practical classes with Moodle as in the virtual learning environment, mainly used to provide supportive material. Okay. Now, the Oscar scorecard I used, and it provided an ideal tool to analyze the existing module, providing a roadmap for the transformation to a blended mode of delivery of the module. And I redesigned the Moodle page. I'm co-teaching the module with Anne O'Leary here, a very good colleague of mine, and I did all kind of the redesigning, and she then does a lot of the teaching there as well and assessment. The one thing that I thought was really important for the online environment, that the page was, first of all, well structured, okay, and that it had plenty of visual cues, because culinary students are very visual learners from the subject area, clear signposting, and that tools for regular communication were available and give access to students to the information where and when they need it. That was very important to me as well. Okay. So now, to make the navigation easier, I created in Camtasia a Moodle navigation video that allowed the students very easily to get to grips with the Moodle page and to see where everything is. We provided them also with a tutorial link for the theory classes that they just click into, which made it easy as well. Then, as I said, the structure, it's very kind of tile format, as easy as possible to navigate and very visual kind of for the students, okay? I just take you a little bit through the different sections as you see more than of what I'm talking about here. Okay, in the instruction section, for example, I used, again, as Aurora previously said, the H5P accordion tool, and it made it really easy for the students to access information. So we had 3 sections there. I just go into one here, which allowed the students to look at the module descriptor, learning outcomes, and so on. And it just made it really easy for the students to navigate. The next section I'm going to look at was the assessment section. Okay, and here again, it was very important to provide a very clear structure on assessment and the individual breakdowns to students. And here we included a rubric for a Padlet assessment that we built into the course. I go on to the next section now, which was important resources where the students had access to supplementary material. One thing that became apparent, though, while doing all this, that Moodle is slightly limiting when you get into sections. Okay, so with the help of Shane Duffy, we kind of made substantial changes using custom HTML code, again with the aim to provide very clear structure and easy navigation. And I did apply this to another course just recently, and all the theory materials are now structured like this. And once they become available, the students can access them all. So they're all the different slides for the different classes. Okay. Now I go back to the important resources. Now here I also included 2 external resources, which was a menu landing page that just shows the students how in the COVID times we can give access to customers or to the students to a menu without actually physically having a physical menu. And that's just the external page there that I created, and it basically shows the menu to customers or to students, so they see actually how to adapt to the current situation with digital tools. And the other external item was I started a podcast. Now I haven't done that much with it yet. I have an introduction so far, and it's called Carina Soundbites, but I have a lot of teams that I want to kind of produce and give students supplementary information through the podcast. Then on to the actual individual menu sections. Okay, the individual menu sections contain the menus within the course, giving the student access to the menu itself, the ingredients and the cooking methods. And here we then included Padlet, okay? And Padlet, I just show you what it looked like there. I hope I'm good for time. What we did here, the students, the menu runs for a 2-week cycle, and then the students reflected here on their observations during class, okay? On the dishes that they had cooked. I took little observation bullet points that they could then emphasize on, and it was really good to enable peer learning because they learned from each other's mistakes, and they also fostered kind of a learning community. And then the students also included little pictures of the dishes that they had produced. I hope nobody's hungry yet, but you might be getting there now. Okay. So that was the use of Padlet for critical reflection, peer learning, and observation. And then on to the quiz section. In the quiz section, we basically had a quiz that used different, now we used Moodle standard quiz, but we used different question modes with drop text to picture and so on. And we had the theory, supplementary material to support the students' learning and engagement. And those quizzes were run every 4 weeks. Okay, I'm wrapping up now. And the last thing, just to mention quickly, in the online environment, it seemed even more important to give access to grades for students. And here we utilized the user report feature in the grades panel, giving access to all the grades of the individual students that then form the basis of our feedback sessions with the students. And that's my visit tour to my Moodle page. Thanks very much.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Ulrich. That looks fantastic. I love the use of you've used so many different engagement tools, and I love your design, and it looks really, really, really good. So well done on that. So we'll move on to the next is Marilla. So we move on to Marilla. If Marilla's on the call.
Yes. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Hi, Marilla. How are you?
How are you? So I'd just like to thank all my classmates for a wonderful journey. We've learned a lot, and specific shout out to Carina and Annette for keeping us in order, and Jessica behind the scenes for organising everything. So thanks a million to you all. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm going to miss you. This is just an overview of an alternative assessment that I did using a Moodle quiz. I wanted my students to have questions that were based on past exam papers, but I needed them to apply the theory to a scenario that they only got to find out at download. So I did a Moodle quiz. It's one of the many ways to do it. And I just so you know, I did it through I'm going to show you a recording now, but it's a PowerPoint recording. And I recorded it, PowerPoint slides that I recorded using Screencast-O-Matic. I'm kind of interested in video editing, so I was kind of went a little bit nuts with the pacing and the sound and the overlays and things, but I'm just thought I'd experiment with you guys, and so that's a bit of an experiment as well. So I'll just share the screen. Hopefully this is going to work perfectly, and I will presume that you can hear it unless you tell me otherwise. Is that okay, Annette?
Yeah.
You can
Yes,
stop me if you can't hear it. Okay.
Yeah.
You can see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, so let's go. It's 9 minutes. Sorry, a minute over.
Yes, we can hear it.
Hello, my name is Marilla Keating. I am one of the academic champions, and my talk today is about a different song and the same dance.
So this slide deck will describe how I used a Moodle quiz to do an alternative final assessment for a group of students. This group of students are 35 adult students that work. They're traditionally come in the evening time to GMIT. The module they're taking is Production and Supervisory Management. This is the final assessment. So I used a Moodle quiz using a pool of scenarios, I'm calling the songs, and they all had to do the same dance. They all had to answer the same questions in relation to different scenarios. I had 3 concerns about this. I needed to make sure it was academically sound. I needed to make sure it was fair and it was accessible. So one of the things I was wondering is, will they understand what's expected? So I had a very clear team meeting. I prepared a guidance document, which was something I didn't do last semester. It was a really good idea to do that. I had a guidance video and I had check-in times during the open period when the assessment was open. About the technology, the assessment period was open for 48 hours. So the technology, it was up to them to make sure that they had access to the technology, that they had access to sufficient Wi-Fi on a computer. They could do it at work, they could do it at home, they could go to the library. It was open for 48 hours from midday Saturday to midday Monday. So that covered all shift patterns these people are working. And we practice technology in class. They had the option to handwrite or to type. Another query I had was, can I be sure it's their own work? So they had limited time. They had 6 hours from the minute they downloaded it to when they uploaded it. One of the queries they had was, how do they need 6 hours to actually do it? They only need 2 hours to do it. It's like equivalent to a 1 semester 2-hour exam. I gave them an estimated word count of 500 words per question. They had to answer 4 out of 6 questions. All the uploads went through Urkund. And because they had different scenarios, there wouldn't have been enough time in the 6 hours for them to compare and contrast with each other. They needed to reference all external sources, including my notes. I was clear that it was an individual submission. I went through the plagiarism policy with them, and they had to click on a submission statement. This is how I approached it. First of all, I just got a Word document and I identified what would the scenarios be. So this is my Word document here. I had 4 different scenarios: a startup soft drink factory, a garden centre, a McDonald's, and a cake factory. So because it's production and supervisory management, they were production supervisors in one of these scenarios. They all had to answer the same questions, but based on different scenarios. They didn't know what their scenario was until they clicked download. And the program board were fantastic. They really helped me out. Rachel, Ita, and Rita, big shout out to you guys. Thank you for not running away all of the time, and just for helping me to make sure that this was academically sound, fair, and accessible for the students, and for test running it as well. I needed to be clear on the expectations and clear on the technology, because I need to be clear, and then I could, obviously, then they could be clear. We needed to test drive the technology, which we did. And I needed to track student activity during their assessment just to make sure that they were there, and I supported them during the open period, during the 48-hour period. So getting them ready, we had Teams meeting, we discussed it in detail. I sent them an email. There it is there, you can see it, letting them, reminding that it was on. And one of the things I did, which I think actually was a really good idea, is I gave them a student preparation document. And I recorded me going through it in class. This is the student preparation document here. So it's just focuses, letting them know how to study. One of the big questions they had is, what do we need to study? How can we get ready for this assessment? And so this document has it all there. So you can see there, it says that they prepare for it by looking at their notes. The questions that they were asked were based on past exam paper questions. So if they study their notes, they study past paper questions, and then on the day they get their scenario, they should be able to apply it successfully. The logistics was open for 2 days, from the middle of Saturday to the middle of Monday, covered all shift patterns and schedules, home schedules, etc. Remember, these are working adults. The type of assessment is open book. So I just let them know they can access their notes, they can access everything, but they do need to reference. I need to know where they were. I need links so I can verify. I also let them know that it's an individual submission and everything was going through Urkund, went through the plagiarism policy as well. And they had a choice, answer 4 out of 5. And they had a word count on each question of approximately 500 words or 1 page. Some of them were sketches, so 1 page was fine. Once they download, they have 6 hours. What if they have questions? Well, they can email me their questions during the time period, and then I will I'll check in on that. So how do I do it? So this is how I did it. I set up a question bank in Moodle. And in this question bank, I had 4 questions. I had a question about the garden centre, McDonald's, a cake factory, and a soft drink. So if you click on one of them, we say the garden centre, this is what comes up. So this is the question. So the question has the scenario of the garden centre here. And then from here on down, the instructions for the students and the 5 questions, they're the same regardless of if it's the garden centre or McDonald's or the cake factory. So for example, this one here is a soft drink. So you can see that the only difference is the actual scenario. The questions are the same. So if you were to take one of the questions, how has environmental scanning been considered by this business to date? The student who gets this one must apply and take into consideration outline the considerations for the soft drink factory, whereas this student here must do it in association with the garden centre. Once I had the question bank set up with the 4 questions, I then had to do a quiz. So you set up a quiz as normal. That's the quiz reference there. And under settings, you edit the quiz and you add a question. So this is a quiz that is 1 question from the question bank. So it is just a 1 question quiz. One of the key things to do is to track activity. So when you click here and you go to edit settings, go all the way down to activity completion and track the activity of the students. This is useful because under administration and reports and activity completion, you can actually see who did what. So I can see on my download all the students that had downloaded and how to upload it. I can also track the time on that. From a student point of view, when it's time to go, they click download. They download their assessment and they click attempt quiz. Now, a few things here, how long it's open for, letting them know it's a unique and individual open book. Also letting them know that they need to upload 1 document only. I don't want loads of different documents. Attempt quiz now. This particular student gets the garden centre. There we go. And there are the 5 questions. They need to answer 4 out of 5. This says here it can be handwritten. Everything's subject to verification. Okay. Next question. Next thing is the support during the assessment. Is that I had a Teams. Anybody who had a question would email them to me, and then I would respond generally through the Teams site. So I opened this up, just saying it's check-in area. I checked in at various stages, and I would give generic responses to generic questions here.
Sorry, Marilla, can I stop you on that?
You can feel very isolated doing an exam.
Yes, hi.
Thanks, Marilla. That's absolutely fantastic, but I'm just have to try and stick to our time. I don't know if you want to just add something quickly to the end of it. But that's absolutely brilliant. Great example, Marilla. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just click on to see if there's anything here that you want to see. This is the upload. So they click on upload to upload. This is an example of what they did. And would I do it again? Yeah, I would do it again. I think it's a good idea. I like the idea, the fact that it's unique, that they get a unique set of scenarios. So that's it. That's it. End of talk.
Excellent, Marilla. Okay. Thank you so much. And it's a great example of, just good planning of MCQ, so it's really, really good, for people who are worried about copying and etc. That's a great idea, and it's a really nice application of it. So thanks a million. Cool. I'm sorry to stop because we could listen to you all day, each one of you.
No bother.
All right, thank you very much. So we have up next is Paul Lennon. And Michelle Finch after that. Good morning, afternoon, Paul, I should say. How are you?
It is. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, I will take control. Okay, so for my module, I picked this module here called software programming. So just a little bit of background. It's for first year students, and it's just to get them introduced to programming. So normally there'd be about 60 students in the class, and really when I was kind of redesigning this, I was thinking about how do I make it easier for the student to get engaged, but then I start thinking about just how do I give feedback to the student. So what I'm going to do in this talk is I'll just explain how I used to give feedback And then I'll talk a little bit about my kind of Damascus moment when I realized that this tool could be used to give feedback. And that's the idea. So normally what would happen is I would give the students 3 assignments. So you can see in here, they would do these 3 assignments, and they're just coding assignments. And we would use a tool like this. So what happens is the students go off and they create this kind of circuit, and then they start writing code. So it'd be something like this. And then what they would do is they would use Screencast-O-Matic and then record a little session. It'd be about 3 minutes long. And they just explain what their code does. And then I would view that, and then I'd look at their code, and then I'd start giving feedback. But this is kind of where the problems begin for me. So if I just go in here, and I'll show you an example. So this isn't, like, this is just a sandbox, so there's no real people in here. So what would happen is Martin would submit his assignment, and then I would go off and I'd have a look here, and I'd look at Martin's assignment and I'd see things like this. Okay, he's using global variables here, and in the coding world that's not great. And then I'd start looking at other stuff and I'd say, okay, formatting is a little bit off here. He's using some functions here, but there's no real kind of descriptive name. So what I would do is I'd go back in here, and then I'd start putting in stuff like this. I'd start saying something like, hey Martin, and then I'd start writing all these different problems that I found with these codes. So I'd say something like, let's see, on line 6, and I'd say, okay, on line 6, let's try and use local, and I'd included probably included the spelling mistakes as well, because what would happen is I've just mentioned one problem in Martin's code, and the issue is there's lots of problems here with this code. And what would happen is, because there's 60 students in the class, by the time I would review the 60 students, and then by the time I would type all this stuff out, if I was lucky, I might get maybe 10 minutes per student. So that's 600 minutes, which is 10 hours. And then I'm trying to get that feedback back to the student, but then it's taking me so long to find it, the 10 hours to give feedback. So either I would just minimize this feedback, or I would just, spend too much time, and then the next assignment would come along, and then, I haven't given them the feedback fast enough, so now they're not applying the feedback, and I'm seeing the same mistakes in the next assignment. So I found that this was a bit of a problem. So when we were redesigning the course, I thought, okay, there must be other ways that I can give feedback. So I tried a few. Initially, I tried streams, and I thought maybe what I can do is, when I'm looking at their assignment and when I'm looking at their video, I can just maybe record something in streams and then paste it in here. So I tried that, and then the problem is, by the time you've done your recording, by the time it's compressed, and then you get your link and you paste your link in here, it takes time, and you just don't have that time. You're going to suffer somewhere. So then I looked at other tools like Screencast-O-Matic, and I tried that. That wasn't too successful either. I tried Camtasia. That wasn't too successful either. And then, now I might be the only lecturer in the village that doesn't know about this, but this was my Damascus moment. I came across this guy here. So if you just click that record audio, and then this little pop-up guy appears. So all you do is click that, and then your 2 minutes start. So what happens then is I go back and I have a look at here at John's code, and I can say, hey John, on line 16 you're using global variables. It'd be so much better if you use local variables. On line 11 or line 12 and 13, you got a bit of a formatting issue. You can just tab those over. On line 19, you're using a function, but it's not very descriptive. So if you could put maybe a more descriptive name in there, it'd be much more useful. And then you got a few functions down here, but you know, you could put in comments here and then to be more useful to the next developer that comes in. Now, if I go back, I've only used 1 minute of my recording, but if I try to type that, that would probably take me maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes to get that much detail in there. So I'm happy with my recording. I click stop, and then I have the option. I can play it back and listen to myself, or I can just attach it. And this is what the student will see. So all they will see now is, I can get rid of this. Now, when the student goes to look at their feedback, I don't know, I give them, I don't know, say it's 4 out of 5, something like that. I give them the 4 out of 5, and then I just click save, and that's it. And now the student will go in, and then they'll look at their grade, and then all you got to do is just click on that widget. So I don't know, can you hear that? That's just me talking what I said there a second ago. And then they can listen to it, and it's detailed. So initially, what I did was I was using, you know, the normal method. I was typing in feedback, and then I changed around week 4, and I started doing this. And what I noticed was when I used the Microsoft Forms anonymous feedback, some of the students mentioned it. They felt that getting this type of feedback was much more beneficial. They found it more in depth and more useful. And yeah, I just thought it was great. But again, I might be the only person that didn't realize that this was here, but this is perfect for me, and this is what I use all the time. And that's it. That's all really I was going to cover.
Excellent, Paul. Thank you so much for sharing. And in the chat, a lot of people weren't aware of that tool. And I think, you know, with all the assessments and assignments, I think that's an excellent something to share with the rest of us, because, you know, if you're feeding back, even with rubrics, I think sometimes even to add this to a rubric mark, it adds great feedback to the students. So that's great. Well done, Paul. And we have another colleague from engineering, Michelle is next, I think, Michelle Lynch from engineering also. So thanks to all of you for all your great work as digital champions in your department also. Michelle, thank you. How are you? Thanks, Paul, for that.
Hi, everyone. So Michelle Lynch here, and I hope to share with you some insights in adapting technical modules for online. Hopefully you can see my slides there. And mostly I'll be referring to a module called System on Chip Design and Verification. So this is a picture of my desk, and a feature of this module is the use of industry standard development tools. And this is also linked to learning outcomes. So we're running a complex software application on the PC called Vivado, connected to an FPGA hardware development board on the desk. Now, this software is too large for most student computers. It's about 70 gigabytes on disk. So me and the students are actually running this software in our GMIT labs where it's installed. And we're doing this using an ERICOM application via which everyone remotely logs in during the live classes. So this is the first feature for me to highlight, this remote access system that we have set up to the labs, and it's supported by my colleague Mike Keaveney, which is essential to the authenticity of the module online. So we're also in the module using Moodle and Teams and many of the Office apps. So the next feature I'm going to highlight is the Moodle course format, which you can set in the administration settings. So last year I changed to using this grid format, which you can see, and you can give your course homepage a nice aesthetic. You can play with the graphic design to a certain extent, but navigation-wise, well, I don't think it's very intuitive. So I'm likely going to revert to this collapsed topics format, where the chronology is clearer. Both versions are not as good, in my opinion, as something like this from Coursera, where you can click and expand content down the left. And this avoids death by scrolling, which can be a feature of the Moodle formats if you're using your Moodle page for a lot of content. Now, there are some discussions on online Moodle forums on this, so maybe that's something for further investigation this year. So for the SOC module then, I did make a separate timeline, and you can see that here. This is made as a H5P object, which I did following one of Orla Skell's sessions last year. You can follow this arrow and click through the weeks and have all the topics and assignments and dates in there. And I embedded it in a label, which avoids the annoying feature of having to click first down into the object. Now, this timeline is really popular with students. You can see it's red on the heat map there. It is the most popular thing on my course page. The second most popular resource on the course are these practice quizzes. And I've been working on creating more and more practice quizzes for the online course, ideally to have one for each section in the module. You'll see this approach on a lot of the MOOCs. And it's nothing new, of course, most textbooks have this approach. So we have this list of question types available to us. And I did experiment with some new types this year, which worked out well. I really think that you can ask any kind of question with any pedagogical approach. It does, however, involve a large time commitment in designing and creating questions, regardless of what way you do it. So in this screenshot, I'm using the description type, which isn't actually a question at all. And I'm using it to show the title page of an online exam. So I put the usual front page information in there. I also discovered this year that you can add section headings to a quiz, and this can give a similar look and feel to a traditional exam with the 5 questions highlighted here, each having multiple parts. So I also improved some of my existing question bank by writing out equations properly using text, which is a formatting language for maths, which Moodle supports. I often used to use images of equations before, usually snipped from my course notes, but I think now that they look much better and clearer when done with text. So another nice question type is this select missing words type. And you can make this an analytical rather than knowledge-based question by including something to analyze, like here, a piece of code, for example. And then along with one of my colleagues, Niall O'Keefe, last year we figured out how to use this close or embedded question type, which actually allows you to put multiple parts in one question, like you can see here. The parts are limited, though, to just numerical and short answers. And another nice one is the pattern match. Again, this can enable a more analytical, evaluative design of question. You can set it up to look for specific phrases or keywords or combinations thereof and ask a student to write an explanation of something, which can then be interpreted by the Moodle engine. So also with regard to quizzes, I found that categorizing is really important so that I can pull in random questions from narrow or specific topics into an assessment. So all students don't see exactly the same exam, which can really help with academic integrity. Also, I might show a different set in the formative versus the summative quizzes. Now, if anyone knows how to bring in an accordion here so I can expand and minimize things, please let me know, because it is not the most user-friendly categorization system. Finally, with regard to quizzes, there's a statistics page where you can analyze the performance of your quiz against various metrics on a per quiz basis or on a per question basis. You can even get into the world of test theory if you want to. And I'm going to finish with this question for you. And if you wish, you can use the camera app on your phone to try out this. It's a nice QR code feature of MS Forms that I use in some of my presentations. So the question to think about is, can robots help lecturers teach online? Thanks, everyone.
Sorry, I was on mute, Michelle. Excellent. Thank you so much. That was excellent and very timely. The MCQ examples are really, really good and give us some great insights. So thanks a lot for very on time and everything, presentation. So thanks a million. So we'll move on to our next presenter is John McGuinness from Letterfrack campus. So John, if you're on the line, I'll let you take it away. Sure. Just check now. I'm not too sure it's John. John on the call?
John McGuinness?
I saw him earlier anyway, I think.
Did we lose him?
Yeah, he was earlier, so let me just check.
Do check on the, yeah, he's not in the participant list. I wonder, could he get dropped off the call? We'll go to the next one, Annette.
Yes, so we'll move on to Paul. So
Paul McGurkin.
Yes. So
morning, everybody.
Carina's looking at this session. Good morning, Paul.
Hi, Paul. You're very welcome from Letterkenny IT. So
thank you. I'll just echo what everybody else has been saying to thank Carina and Annette and all the team for pulling this together, because it's been a tremendous experience. Just bear with me while I try and share my screen. We use Blackboard, so sharing in Teams is new to me now, or different to me. Can you see anything from me yet?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Are you seeing the PowerPoint slide? Panopto?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I'll move on then. So the slide itself, what I've said here is Panopto solves one of my problems. My main thing was where I live and teach remotely. So the module was management, a management principles module. It was for our part-time BB lifelong learning. And we're moving some of it to be online. And this was the first time I taught this particular module in this format. And I didn't want to mirror a live class in the sense of how we might have done it face-to-face. I was looking to take more advantage of some of the affordances that e-learning would give us, and not teach remotely as such, but prepare materials and make them available for students to use at their own time and pace and all those things. So I have tried Screencast-O-Matic. I had tried, which I like. I really like the way the cursor is highlighted with the yellow circle and when you use it there. I've also tried using Blackboard because we can record classes from there. It's good in many things, but it doesn't have an editing feature. So I'm trying to find a simple solution to deliver material. Really, that was it. So using Panopto for that. So it's a straightforward recording. So the slides here just take a few screenshots of some of the things that you do as you're going through it. So you open it in the same way as you do any of the screen recording software. You can open it, you can download it. It's available to us, and it's free, and I find it very, very useful to use. So after you've recorded, you record your PowerPoint your normal way. You can record all the elements of the screen, or if you use your pencil to bring it's stored online. It can also be stored remotely, but my laptop was running out of room. So something that Michael Carey said earlier on about organizing your folders in Explorer, and you can actually mirror it the same way here. So on the cloud, wherever this is stored, and I don't know where it's stored, it gives you an opportunity to create folders, so you can actually mimic your online element of the recordings to follow your syllabus. So this is just a screenshot of a couple of the videos that I'd made for the module. And from this screen, this is where the true value of Panopto comes in, is that you record it, but then it gives you tremendous editing facilities and features. Now I've only begun to use it, so it's really much just checking to see how it is and working with it. So I followed the guidelines given by our instructional designer, Damien, at the time, to keep most of the videos bite-sized short. So I've broken the material down as much as possible to not really bore the students as the way I have the potential to. And then the next screen, this is where we would work in it. So from the previous screen, you would click on a video and you can edit it. So the thing that pops up here, sorry, in the main screen that you're seeing, you have a timeline. On the left-hand side, you can see all the different slides that have been brought in and the discussions around it. So you're able to add notes to it. There's the timeline with the sounds at the bottom. But the key things here is that you can snip it as well. So you can create, now I don't know any of you recording, Marilla says she likes to use, recording videos. Invariably, when I record a video, it starts off with me either with my mouth open or my tongue out or some disgusting feature like me there. So it allows me to clip the video at the start and the end. So I've practiced a wee bit about that. But the main things are adding things in as well. So the third element there in the pop-up screen is adding a quiz. So what I like to try and do, despite the fact that these videos are quite short, trying to get some sort of element where the students have to engage some way. And I'm just using this as a check-in. So I add a quiz. So I might add a question, a multiple choice question in. And generally what I do is I'll put in 2 questions to the short, even for a short video. The first question early in the video will relate to the previous video, just trying to stimulate some sort of memory or some sort of recall or something that's going on for the student, also give them a chance to see that it is linked. And then somewhere in there, then I'll add a question about the current video, whatever's happening in it. And then why I like the video, so this is the student view from Blackboard. We use Blackboard, we don't use Moodle. The rest of you seem to use Moodle. Now we use Blackboard. I like it, it's good, straightforward enough. When you've created the video in Panopto and it's stored online within Blackboard, you can either embed it directly, and there's also a tool within there. And this is the view that the student gets. So many of you showed us your modules today. As they work through the module on Blackboard, this is the view that they get. So they get the, I don't know what it's not a thumbnail, but they get the same as you'd get as a YouTube picture of what the video looks like. And it has the standard video recording functions or playback functions. It gives you the time. You can download it to view later on. And at the bottom right hand side of the screen there, I have put the thumbnail. Now, earlier videos I recorded, I didn't include the thumbnails myself. Not that I think I need to be in there, but I find I get a greater sense of interactivity or ownership of the material if I'm involved in it. It's just a personal thing. I'd be interested to see what other people think of that. Is this, I personally get more out of it. Or now whether the students get more out of it or not, I don't know. I don't know if they need to see me or not, but that's something then that I'll come on to. Then, so this is what a quiz looks like, or a multiple choice question. You can insert these anywhere and they can be in any format. So you can put them in there. You can make it that they get marks, that it contributes. These are no cost quizzes. They're just to stimulate something. They tick an option, they can move on, or you can make them get the right answer before they can move on. And just trying to build that level of interaction. And that's really it, because it's a simple, straightforward tool. I like using it. There's a lot more functionality that I can use. And as I said, what do the students think of it? I'm going to wait and see. I want to wait before their marks are through Blackboard, because if I ask them, what do you think of my work? How brilliant is it? And they haven't got their marks, they might think that they need to tell me what I want to hear. So I think I'll just wait to the end and see, and I'll look for their feedback on that. And that is really all I needed to show you on that. So thanks for your time, folks. And it's been a pleasure sharing that information with you.
And thank you so much, Paul. And thanks again for your work as a digital champion in Letterkenny IT. We've really enjoyed collaborating with all of you in Letterkenny and Sligo as well. Thank you. So next up we have Cillian O'Marcu from IT Sligo. Cillian, are you here? Is Cillian here? Do a check.
Hi, Carina.
Hi, Cillian.
Sorry. Hi.
How's it going?
Hi, keeping.
Hi, Cillian.
All good. All good.
I think something sharing here. It might be your screen, Paul.
Yeah, it looks like Paul. Yeah, he's still.
Letterkenny Institute. I see up top. Sure. Do you want to stop sharing? Lovely. So you're very welcome, Cillian. Cillian is a digital champion from IT Sligo. So, and thanks, Cillian, for your contributions this year. You've been great delivering sessions with us as well in our clinics. So leave it over to you now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, folks. Thanks. So initially, I'd just like to just say, thanks to both Annette, Carina, and Jessica. It's been a really good experience so far. There really has been some great ideas today, and hopefully, I'm going to steal one or two of them and use them in my own classes. Today, what I'd like to just give a short talk on is some of the tools that I've used, I suppose, to help me get students engaged and also to assess students with. And two of the tools that I'm just going to quickly talk about are on Moodle quizzes and Kahoot. Okay, so Moodle quizzes can be used naturally for assessing students, but you can also use them to get students to engage as well with the course. And typically I would use the Kahoot online software as a way of kind of creating a fun atmosphere in the class and a way to, I suppose, encourage good interaction amongst the students. But initially, I just want to talk about some of the good features that are in Moodle in the quizzes themselves, and why I might use the quizzes and why they are useful. So these are just some of the good reasons as why, it will build students' confidence. If they're able to practice some of the concepts they worked out in class, it will slowly build their confidence over time. and naturally it allows them to consolidate their learning over time. Through the quizzes, you can give instant feedback, and it can be personalized if you wish to the individual. You can also, as a lecturer, identify the different areas that students are struggling with. And afterwards, there's a lot of stats you can kind of gather, to give you a bit more information about what's worked well kind of within your particular module. And once or twice throughout the semester, I use the quizzes themselves, as warm-up questions when I kind of flip the classroom on the odd occasion. So they're quite useful from that aspect. The area that I kind of teach in the School of Business IT Sligo is in maths and stats. So that's why I kind of do fall on heavily on quizzes, because they are, I suppose, a great way to encourage engagement from the students. So just kind of a little overview of some of the types of quizzes that we do have in Moodle. So there's a huge variety of quizzes, from calculated essay type quizzes, multiple choice type quizzes, just to name a few. So these are just some of the examples of some of the questions you can use within Moodle quizzes. Like there's drag and drop features, essay type. You can select, as I said, words from different lists and so on. So there really is a huge variety of quizzes that we can use. And these are just some of the examples of some question types that I would have used. So these are, calculated questions. I use multiple choice, and the beauty about all of these, and I know it was kind of touched on earlier as well, is that, I can randomize these questions. So I can randomize the numbers within the questions so that, each student is getting a variety of different type of questions within their own quiz. So these are just some of the other questions I would have used. So like essay type questions. Here's just an examples of a quiz where students can even type in their own answers if they wish. And as I said, these are just a couple of examples of questions where you can give simple but instant feedback to students when they select a particular answer. So some of the key features of these quizzes where I found of great benefit were as follows. As I kind of hit on there's a variety of different types of questions that can be used to suit all courses, not just a kind of maths type or numerous type subjects. Questions can be randomly chosen from a bank of questions. So I think the biggest, I suppose, stumbling block is you do need to create those questions initially. But once you put in the time and effort in, you really have a lot of good stuff to kind of work with that you can kind of use over and over again, especially with the kind of random feature within the questions where you can change numbers and so on, or change words. The other side then is, once you've created a bank of questions, you can easily export them to other courses if needs be. The questions themselves can be, the order can be randomized. And a nice feature as well is that you can personalize certain settings for students. So for example, if a student is due an extra 10 minutes per hour, you can increase the time limit just for that particular student if needs be. There's also multiple tries at a question. So in other words, student could be given 3 attempts at a question, but naturally with each attempt, they don't get as many marks after each attempt. And there's also the benefit that in certain instances, you can automatically allow the Moodle itself to grade the questions, and the grade naturally will appear automatically in the student's grade book. And finally, there's an immediate or deferred feedback. So it all depends on how you wish the feedback to be given to the students straight away, or maybe, a week later and so on. So that's kind of one of the tools that I use, as I said, mainly for assessment, but I do include Moodle quizzes as practice for the students with automatic or immediate feedback, which feedback from the students. They found they do like the idea of being able to practice quizzes any number of times. The other tool that I've used a bit more towards the end of the semester, just passed, was the idea of Kahoot. And Kahoot is just that, it's a web-based learning platform, and students themselves have kind of used it already, I think, in secondary school, so they're quite familiar with it. The basic part of Kahoot is free, but naturally, if you do want to make use of it, the more kind of, I suppose, the better benefits to it, you do have to pay a small fee. But I find them as a great way for students to interact and kind of create a nice competitive environment in the class. So there are quizzes already set up, or you can search for them, or you can create your own quiz. You can create quizzes across any type of level or any type of subject matter. And as I said, you can play or you can edit existing quizzes if you want. You can also allow quizzes to be live, or you can assign students to play at their own pace. And you can allow students to play one against one or in a team mode. And the beauty about them, as well, as you can include graphs, images, GIFs, videos can be added to the questions, to make them a bit more engaging. So it's as simple as just creating a pin. The students kind of enter the pin once they go onto the website, Kahoot website. Then there is a variety of different types of questions that you can pick from, some more engaging naturally than others. And so it is just an example of a question. So these are the 4 options. The students then will see these options and they'll actually pick which particular option or which answer they think is correct. And again, there's automatic feedback as well, and you're able to see, which student has actually got the question right, or how many got them right, and so on. You can also pause here, and you can kind of work through the question with them and try and, as I said, clarify any kind of misunderstandings. So that's the other benefit to these quizzes. The other type of question, then afterwards, you have this kind of podium kind of element in it, which is kind of competitive element to it, which kind of encourage students, I suppose, to kind of take part, and it does create a little fun element to the class. And as I said, there are various kind of feedback results that you can, look at once the quiz has been completed. So that's really it for me. That's just, as I said, some of the tools that I've kind of used and I found quite good in my classes to date. So thanks for listening.
Thanks a million, Cillian. That's great. Thank you again, and thanks for your work as a digital champion in IT Sligo. So next up we have
Thanks
a million. Take care. Next up we have Shane Wilson. Shane Wilson is from Letterkenny IT. So Shane, are you here?
I am.
Hi, lovely to have you, and welcome again. And thank you for all your work as a digital champion.
Thank you, both you and Annette and Jessica, for everything you've done.
So, thanks, Shane.
No worries. So I'm just going to start a little timer and then I'll kick off. Yeah, you can see my screen? Great. Okay, so I'll basically outline what I did and how I approached it. I took a level 6 module in database technology, Springboard program, fully 100% online, delivered September to December. Last year was my second year taking this module. The year before, I was given it a week before delivery, just when I started in LYIT. 34 students, mixed cohort, mostly mature students, but like everyone else, they've got everything else going on in their lives. Work-life balances, trying to find time to study in between homeschooling and work and COVID. And for a lot of these students, the fear of coming back to full-time education. So it's important that we consider all of those, and we can relate to many of them ourselves. So I flipped this module, and it was interesting to hear other people's takes on what flipping involves. For me, it's trying to answer the question, what is the most effective use of your time with the students? And for me, it's not spending that time conveying the basic information that they need to master the higher order skills. It's helping them with those higher order skills from Bloom's taxonomy, being able to create and evaluate and analyze. And we ask them in a traditional classroom to go do those things after class, after the lecture, or outside practicals. So I wanted to use my time with them to help them with that. And I use instructional videos, lecture slides, additional resources and activities, and pre-class activities to convey the core information. So pre-class, they did videos, and they interacted with the videos. They didn't watch them. They completed quiz activities, other activities, revisit the material when necessary. In class, we use problem-based learning and other activities, sharing, discussing solutions, and we'd repeat that multiple times in the class. And then we'd carry that on after class through Microsoft Teams as well. Module design. I didn't create this. I really like the Udemy model of designing things, and rather than starting with the learning outcomes, you start with a learner analysis. You ask, what are their pain points? What are they going to struggle with? What are their aspirations? What do they want to be able to do when they complete the module? What are they doing the module for in the first place? And then you look at the learning outcomes and you try and map those onto the learning outcomes. And what you're really trying to do is try and figure out how you get them from where they are to those learning outcomes. So you break the learning outcomes into more manageable module outcomes, stages, if you want to call them that. And then you link those stages together, and you're trying to figure out what bits and pieces that you need to teach within each of those stages. What are the stage goals? What are the resources that you need to provide to convey the student from where they start to where you want them to be at the end of the module? And I think it's a great way of sitting down and designing a module from scratch, and I've used it a couple of times in the past. And in designing those activities, that's where then your ABC methods really kick in and help you figure out what activities you want the students to do. From that, then I created a spreadsheet or a table, and I give this to the students as part of their module handbook. So it shows them each week what sections they're doing, the goals that they're going to accomplish by completing that section, the concepts that are covered, and the practical things that they can do once they've completed that section. So you break down the module, you work it all out and it needs to be covered. Then I took a template and figured out what videos I needed created, what additional resources and activities, and how you stage those. So I ended up creating just over 7 hours of video, which is 80 videos, but each of the videos are roughly on average 5.5 minutes. So they're short. The whole thing is chunked and manageable. We use Blackboard and Letterkenny as well, so everything was structured on a weekly basis. The first thing that they see in the module is the onboarding section, really. So it's where do they start? What do they need to know right now? We tend to give students too much information and overwhelm them with all that information. So I just tell them, this is where you're going to start. So we've got a nice module introduction. Now, the use of headshots, and some people talked about this before, I only use headshots for the module introduction and section introductions because headshots really help build trust and credibility, demonstrate support and empathy for our students. And it's a nice variation from any screencast that you do. So it helps the student relate. I also have a quick win activity in there. So I invite them into the Microsoft Teams group and just to say hello, just to say what their experience of the module, what they're looking forward to, have they done this concept or this topic before? So it's just getting them into that community and making them feel part of that community, managing that student onboarding at the start of the module and building confidence. So on a weekly basis, they have the slide decks, they have each of the videos, and the videos are designed with activities embedded in them. And we'll talk about that in a minute. We'll talk about it. So that could be practice quizzes, it could be research activities where they've got to go off and answer a question and then go into the Microsoft Teams group and discuss that with other people. And then at the end of that, these are the pre-class activities, and then the in-class activities are the practical exercises that I want them to achieve or accomplish in a group online. So almost all of the videos will have something for them to do. I don't want them to passively watch the videos. I want to encourage active learning. So they'll regularly pause the video, complete a task, follow along what I've done, answer the quiz questions that appear within the videos, and that helps point them back to areas of the module that they're perhaps weak on and they can refocus their learning. And I monitor that as well. So before class, I'll monitor the students' activity with their pre-class activities and quizzes and everything else, and I'll see where the students are struggling. So then I can pivot my teaching later on that night and focus on those bits of the module or that concept or those topics the students may be struggling with. I also use Nearpod. So Nearpod provides polls, Droid, collaboration boards, matching pairs, quizzes, open-ended questions, fill in the blanks, word clouds, and even interactive simulations for physics and biology and all sorts of stuff. It's really, really cool, and it's free, and it's dead easy to use as well. So there's interactive quizzes and also the slide decks. Some of them are available through that as well. So it's just matching pairs, typical sort of things. We also, depending on the subject, in databases, I use Draw.io for collaborative drawing for students for some of the tasks as well, so they can share those and use that online with just any browser. I also use peer support network built within Microsoft Teams. As many people said before, discussion boards I don't think work anymore, and I've used Discord chat server in the past. So in the past module at Ulster, I had over 12 weeks, 2,600 messages sent by students. I think there was 165 students in the module. And so they really use those. If you can build activities within your module that will foster building that community, and it acts as a support network for students. So I monitored it heavily in the first couple of weeks, and then I took the training wheels off and gave students space and time to answer other students' questions. And then they started really seeing the value of that. Headline figures, it delivered, 18,000 hours or minutes of video, and that's 309 hours. On average, students watched almost 10 hours of video, and the mean completion rate for the video was almost 100%, which I think is amazing and great. And the students really engaged in the videos all the way through the course, and the dip there was around Halloween. Module evaluations were good. Students really loved the content, but the comments are all, the chunking the videos really worked. The quizzes really helped them understand. And those all worked out really well. So that's me. 8 minutes just.
Super, dead on time. Thanks a million, Shane. Some really good ideas. I love that tool, the peer support network, to help build communities.
It's
further. Yeah.
Students will really find use of that if you can get them into it and see the benefit of it. And I've done it for a number of years. Discussion groups, I don't think work, and that instant messaging, especially for undergraduates, they love it. And they can see the value of it, and they can turn to it outside of class. So they don't feel like they're lost and alone, which is really important for online learning.
Absolutely. Thanks a million, Shane. And next up, you're going to introduce the next one, isn't it, Annette?
Yes, so we have 3 speakers left. We have Katie, Sarah, and Isabel. So we're running a little bit over time, but not too much, and we'll all be able to get our lunch hour. So I'd like to introduce Katie from GMIT, from the School of Science. And so I'll let you take it away. They're great digital champions, sharing great practice with everybody in different sessions, etc. So thanks a lot, Katie, for your work to date. And I'll just let you showcase your 2.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Annette. So what I will just do for a moment, because all of you have shown really nice course pages, so I just thought I'd briefly open mine, but I wanted to just focus in on one aspect of it then when I'm discussing things in a bit more detail. So this is the module that I've chosen and designed for the assessment, and it's a zoology module that I teach. So it's a co-delivered module, and I've just included my section here in a tidier sandbox version. So here I've created a kind of a area where the students can just keep in touch with me. There's the introduction to the module, and then I come down here where I have the grid format with course administration, the lecture material here, the practicals, and their final assessment piece. And I find this grid format works quite well. I would prefer the tiles format, which maybe we'll get access to in the future. I just realize I'm in there now as a student, but if I just click on one of these, I just want to show you. So I'm going into the practicals. And in the practicals here, similar a little to what Killian was saying there, I also have kind of a quiz to review the learning that has been carried out in the previous section. So these links are all different videos, some that I've created and some that I'm borrowing for the practicals, and then the quizzes I've created. There's a Mentimeter word cloud here that I use just to try and get the students to reflect a little bit on what happened in that section of the course, and to be able to see what
they have kind of identified as a key aspect of interest to them, but also what do the other students choose and how does that compare to what they picked out themselves. So that's it. So the bit that I'm going to talk about the most is within the lectures here. So in the lectures, you'll see some of these are H5P lectures, and I know others have mentioned H5P a bit already, and I was torn between discussing H5P or Microsoft OneNote for this workshop, but I went with H5P. So based on that, I'm going to go back to some slides that I have here. So just in terms of H5P, then I really wanted to make interactive lecture material because I think I definitely think there's a lot to be gained from the live lectures, but then in order to have more flexibility online, the recorded material is really useful. But I feel that recorded material on its own might not be engaging enough. So based on that and based on discussions and having attended other workshops within the Digital Champion progression, it opened my eyes to a few different options. So for the H5P, I suppose what I had heard and what I taught myself from looking at this is that it helps a lot with engaging the students. I really think it gives them the motivation to carry out their own self-review, because that's really what they're doing when these little questions are popping up throughout the video. Were they paying attention to the video? Are they learning the key concepts within the video? And then at the end of the video, the H5P also, for the interactive video tool, has a summary option. So I would provide 2 or 3 summaries, only one of which is correct. And again, here the students would click on which one is correct or not, and they'd get a bit of feedback on that. And they'd be able to see why if they selected the incorrect one, they'd be able to assess why themselves. So I think it's really important from that point of view as well. They're relatively easy to design, which I know other colleagues that I've spoken to as a digital champion in promoting the use of H5P and these different digital tools have kind of balked a little bit at, but I think they are really, once you just, rather than looking at all of H5P and everything it can do, if you just pick 1 or 2 tools within H5P and focus in on those, then I think they're really useful. And I really just got going on the interactive videos and have only briefly explored some other options within H5P. And I also find once you do find that it's relatively easy to design and you just focus in on figuring out how to do an interactive video, they're really time efficient. So when I record my video anyway, the recording is what takes the time. And while I'm recording it, I'm thinking of what will be my 3 or 4 questions in that 10-minute video or 15-minute video that I will put in using H5P. So I have all that done, and then the actual implementation in H5P is really only an extra 5 to 10 minutes once you have those steps done in advance. So I'm just going to present an example here. So in the video, just for anyone who hasn't used the interactive video tool in H5P before, this would be my video and it would be playing and I'm narrating it. And then suddenly an icon pops up and the video stops. And the students then need to click on the icon. And once they've clicked on the icon, it comes this pop-up question for them. So they're going to need to answer this question based on what I've been discussing and what we've been looking at in this diagram. And then they can check their answer. And you can be mean and set it that they can't move on if they get the answer wrong, and that they have to get the answer right, and that it can be graded. I think Lucia mentioned as well earlier. But I was just using this purely as kind of an additional interactive part to their lecture video. So I didn't do any of that, but I did pause the video so they couldn't continue with the video until they had answered something. So here then I selected the correct answer and it has ticked the box for the correct answer, and I've put in a brief explanation of that. And again, these explanations might look a bit more detailed, but because you've just prepared the lecture video, it really does only take a few minutes to type them up. And here, this is what the feedback they would get if they picked the wrong answer, for instance. So this is the part where they get to do their own self-review of, are they learning the material as they go? In relation to this, I also collected some student feedback because I found one of the things in exploring all of the digital tools is I wanted to try a bit of everything. And some of you have touched on this already, like how are we going to find out what actually works and what we want to pursue? Or are we going to keep trying to do everything? And I think I'm finding that's not going to be sustainable. So in terms of student feedback, I used Microsoft Forms, and they gave me feedback on terms of whether they preferred. I was interested in terms of the live lectures, the interactive recorded lecture, or a regular recorded lecture with no interactivity. And overall, they favoured the interactive recorded lecture. When I asked them then to rank their preference of these in terms of their first choice, etc., I got the most first choices again for the interactive recorded video, but still the recorded video of the lecture and the printed notes in PDF were still important. So at least this meant to me that doing the extra steps of putting up the PDFs for all the lectures as well is still useful and still important. And I was kind of interested in this from a universal design point of view as well. So I think that kind of reinstated some of the ideas that we would already have been discussing in universal design. Audio of lectures only didn't score highly. It's not actually something that the students would have had an example from me. And then these were kind of where the more useful feedback came out of, I suppose, for the interactive videos. So you can see there, they're talking about being more attentive, more engaged, being able to study at their own pace. So that for that, they liked either the recorded or the interactive recorded videos. The interactive videos kept them engaged. They felt like they were learning more, which to me is great, like, because I definitely do think that review piece is probably key in these questions. And then here, somebody has given a bit more information about the active engagement helped by the intermittent questions and an outline of where their attention needs to be directed from the summary at the end. And really, I hadn't even considered the importance of the summary at the end of the H5P video. So the students had themselves. Important feedback I think that I also got that I haven't included here was about the live lectures and some students who actually have particular needs. Like, for example, one student mentioned it being easier to attend a live lecture where they know there's a time commitment and they need to pay attention for that hour because they'd have difficulties in just sitting down and motivating themselves to go through the videos. So that was kind of key for me, whereas then others, of course, raised negative sides of the live lectures where they have to be online at a certain time and they can't go back and rewatch the information if it's not recorded. So it was a very useful exercise. I have just focused in on the H5P for this purpose. And I did mention Microsoft OneNote would be the other thing I'd be giving a huge thumbs up for. So thanks for listening, and thanks to Carina, Annette and Jessica as well for all their help, and all the other digital champions.
Thanks, Katie. That's really, really, really excellent now. And it gives us all a great insight on how we should use H5P. And again, more interestingly, how the students enjoy it and how they like it. I found that very interesting. You know, so they feel that it helps them in their learning. So thanks a lot for sharing that. And a lot of us might reapply our skills now to the H5P. So well done.
Thanks.
So excellent. Thanks a lot. So next we have 2 speakers left. We're going a little bit over lunch, but we'll be finished by 15:15. So Sarah Bertrand she's a lecturer in French in GMIT. So Sarah's next, and then we have Isabel from Letterkenny after that. Okay.
Hello, folks. I'm just showing my face very shortly.
Hi, Sarah.
From sunny Salthill for once. Yeah. So what I'm going to talk about really today is how to adapt the technology to languages, because the technology is mostly designed for English speakers, and a lot of what's very useful for English speakers or any other modules is actually very detrimental to languages. So you should be able to see my screen now. Is that the case?
Yeah, yes, we can.
I'm going to turn off my face. You don't need it. Up. Okay. So this year, what I've missed the most from going fully online is really the live synchronous collaboration between students. For two main reasons. The first one is that it provides the students with great learning opportunities. They tend to learn more from their peers and from just lecturers. That's what the research says. And it's used for oral production. It's used for solving exercises. It's used for mediating as well, as in using the language in context. And the second thing, and I think for me is perhaps the most important, because I have 3 first-year groups this year, is that seeing them interact together helps me understand how they are learning and what they've learned or not learned. And without seeing this, I struggle sometimes at the start to figure out what their level of French is, because we get very, very mixed groups. So what I'm going to focus on first is the use of the class notebook and the channels to create repository of documents and of resources, and also to use as a live collaboration tool for pair work or small group work. And I will finish also with showing you a bit of the use of H5P for languages. So I've discovered earlier on that because of the interactivity of a language class, there is a lot of feedback to give, and therefore PowerPoints are fairly useless for that kind of work. So I've resorted to using the class notebook, in which I've created a section for each session that we have. And for each session, I put up the lesson plan. For instance, here you can see on the 24th of November, we had first correct some homework, then we were focusing on les participes passés, then we had a document to go through, a song to listen to, and then a bit of feedback on homework and on the oral work. So I use that platform as a clear lesson plan for the lecture that we are in. And this allows me to integrate as well all the comments, all the feedback. So here in the bold characters would have been the lesson plan I had. And in between here, so from here, samedi matin, je me suis levée, s'est réveillé, s'est maquillé, etc. All of this would be the feedback. So it allows me this interactive correction, this interactive feedback form for the students. And because it's on the notebook, they can't change it. So it remains there for the whole semester or the whole module. So that becomes very useful. The second thing I do is get them to do a bit of a live session. So bear with me, I'm going to show you a bit of a recording from what happens in a live session. Okay. Before I play this for you, I put the students into channels or little groups. Uploaded work for them to do in the class beforehand. I give them instructions, then they go on to it, and then they collaborate together. So they collaborate in writing, but also speaking, and I'm in it at the same time. So I see exactly what they're writing. I can hear what they're saying. So it's as if I were in their sitting room. In this specific example I'm giving you, I have a student now living in the UK, another one in Ireland, and another one in the south of Ireland. So it's a really great tool here.
Sound's not coming through, Sarah.
Oh,
yeah.
Apologies, it should come through. Bear with me. It's quite low though, so it might be an issue.
Did you enable the system sound, the audio?
Hold on. Can you hear that now?
We can hear it. It's just poor quality.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, I can share that with you in the chat box, because the reason I had it re-recorded is to kind of not disclose the students' identities. So that's probably what's playing up. But I guess you're seeing what's happening. So
if you want to turn off your mic, Michael just said, if you turn off your mic, maybe it'll play over then.
Okay.
No, we've no sound now.
Yeah, no.
No sound. Okay, that's okay.
Maybe sound wasn't enabled before you share your screen. You have to enable the sound, but don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, I'm on Mac, so it works very differently on Teams at the moment, you see. So
oh, you're on a Mac.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Because for video screencasting, it just works easier. So, but just to show you a little bit, I'll move on a little bit. You can see them type as they go along. Okay. And it allows me, for instance, here, that was me correcting some of the spelling and coming into them then. Sorry about the technological glitch, but I guess that's what happens in class as well. So
no, that's perfect.
Yeah. So just to show you what it looks like at the very end. So you can see at the top, I would have put my instructions here, an example, some more explanations for them, just in case. And then here is all their little contributions, some examples. And you can see that I've commented here because at the end, so as you can see at the start, I have to do a little bit more corrections, but as we go along, then they get it, and it's kind of handy. What the students have said so far, I'm still collecting feedback on that because that module is over, is that it allowed them to chat, which they really miss from not having the live sessions. And it allowed them to get to know each other a bit more and obviously to practice what they had learned as well. So the last thing I wanted to show you was H5P for languages, because as I've mentioned before, a lot of what can be used on quizzes is absolutely useless for languages because by a simple left click, everything is Google translated for them automatically. So some stuff where you can use photos to replace text, it's not going to be as automatically translated as that, but a lot of it where you have the drop-down menus, all that, you can't really have photos, so it's quite detrimental. So I have used H5P mostly for revisions for two different purposes. The first one was for some writing, and the second one is to do for the speaking as well. So let me show you, for instance, what it looks like for the writing. So some instructions from before that they have seen before, okay, this is revisions, okay, and then a drop down. So they have a scene and they have to kind of drop down whatever the situation here. So le train would be here, for instance, and then same as what you've seen before, you correct and you get 2 out of 8. Here you can type. Bear in mind, again, that we are quite limited. I've had to change the instructions because anything with accents or without accents, if you forget the accents, it becomes a mistake. So you need to make sure that you tell them to use the accents because it's built for an English-speaking world. And the very last thing that I found the most useful from the H5P for languages is this section where you practice your spoken. So here, simple question, how do you say I go or I'm going? Je vais. And it tells you whether it's correct or not. So you can get them to practice quite a bit of spoken work, which I find very useful. Nous devons. And it's great, it's recognizing my French, so I'm not too bad. Okay, so that's what I've used so far this year in terms of technology. I've tried to keep it as simple as possible for 2 reasons. Obviously, the language compatibility issue. And then the second thing is just we're being bombarded with so much at the moment that I've tried to keep it neat. And I think that the Microsoft One notebook and the class notebook and the channel notes have really helped with that. So that's it. Thanks a million, everyone. Thank you, Carina and Annette for everything, and all the other champions for helping out.
Thanks. Thank you so much, Sarah. That's an excellent showcase for anyone teaching languages. You know, very, very good. Now, so we give you a round of applause. Thank you so much. And our last but not least, we have Isabel from Letterkenny. So, Isabel, are you on the line?
I am.
Yes,
I am.
great.
I'm just going to get up my, just bear with me 1 second, where'd it go?
Great, thanks folks.
And I'll keep it nice and short and sweet for you all. So, because I know everybody's belly is rumbling and they're thinking it's time for food. So let's put that here and turn it up here for me. So can everybody see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. So what I am looking at is what I'm actually going to focus on today is there's I suppose a lot that I can take away from what we did learn throughout this entire process. And I suppose a lot of the tools that I would have used as a result of this would have been an example there of the Padlet. I used some of the Microsoft Forms. I found them very beneficial. The Mentimeter, really good, particularly when I was trying to engage the students in terms of their knowledge and their thoughts on something. Also, which I also did the UDL course, and that, along with a lot of the information we got through this course, made me really think about engagement in the initial stages. So the module that I've chosen is actually ongoing, and it's a part of a new executive ed master's program that we have here at LYIT. And the module I'm looking at is innovation and entrepreneurship in the fintech sector. So what I did do was using that, like the likes of Panopta, to do a short overview of the module, links then to the tasks and different things like that. And you can hear now noise outside my door. But anyway, so this is kind of some of the different tools that I did look at. But actually today, what I'm going to focus on is the e-portfolio and the reflective learning logs. Now here in LYIT, we actually don't have, we've only just got the built-in e-portfolio on Blackboard, and it's very restrictive. But I was hoping that by focusing on this and the reflective learning logs, that if there put maybe an argument going forward too for what you have, and I know, Annette, you've given me a lot of guidance in this here in terms of, you know, the PebblePad and Weebly and things like that there. But at the moment, we only have a very basic package. But I decided to plough on ahead and look at it. And really what I looked a lot of it from was really from my digital strategy, my assessment strategy, and suppose the nature of these participants, they are all middle to senior management in fintech. So I felt the reflection on their learning, the module is quite theoretical based. So I felt that that would really benefit them as takeaways. And also, so for me to see in terms of how they're actually engaging with the learning outcomes of the module. So through different research, I developed my e-portfolio and adapted it from Pennylight et al. And I felt that their implementation plan really made me think about the portfolio and why I was designing it and why I was getting them to do certain things and what platform and audience and different things like that. And also, apart from what they were talking about in UDL, but also through the Digital Champions, I developed a booklet outlining the learning process. So I couldn't take it as given that they all understood why a reflective learning log would be a part of assessment or the learning process, and even indeed what e-portfolios were and the benefit of it. So I just done a booklet, uploaded an assessment folder, so outlining, you know, the thoughts process behind reflective learning logs and e-portfolios, the benefits, and really suppose what they could take away from it, and then you give them an idea of, you know, an unstructured reflective log and even reflective prompts and things like that. And again, based on thinking about my assessment strategy and the digital assessment strategy, I also developed a rubric for them to work on, and that was adapted from Jones. But suppose, and Annette, after you have made an awful lot in this here, it made me really think about how I assess them in the digital space, particularly this particular cohort that I was looking at. So in terms of this, what I also decided to do based on my learning through this process was give them a chance to reflect either through video logs or through journals. So you can see here through Panopto, so they have a chance to reflect through Panopto, and they some of them have come back and said this is a way that they prefer to communicate, so they'll be able to reflect through Panopto. And this is just different stages that I have up onto the assessment folder that gives them the information. So this is example, the link, obviously the assessment brief, the link above then is to our actual e-portfolio page, and then indeed some instructions of how they do the video logs. So as I said, here at the moment, our portfolio is, our software is quite basic. So all we can have is our portfolios that be uploaded and some artifacts and things like that. At the moment, as I said, these students have only completed now week 3. This module started mid-December. So they, as of yet, obviously this is just me, an example of what it would look like. So they're only starting now to populate their portfolios and their reflective learning logs. So as I said, I don't have any visuals to submit at this moment, but I found through the process, it's something that's been really interesting for me. I also am workplace coordinator for another master's program. and I would have never got them to do portfolios, but not e-portfolios, or indeed, you know, reflective log very much had to be written, and that's not always was the nature of our learner that's in front of us. So I feel like going forward, I will definitely implement e-portfolios and the reflective learning log further, but I definitely believe that it would be great if we could go down maybe the route of Pebble Pabs and Weebly, because I think that what they offer as a package would be fantastic to the students' experience. And there's a link that indeed you, Annette, sent to me, and I found very beneficial as well in terms of ePortfolio Ireland. So with that, I will finish.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Isabel. Thanks for sharing. That's really interesting in relation to reflective practice. So it's really, really good. And again, I just want to take this opportunity to thank everybody, and Carina will probably thank you separately, but thanks to everybody today. You've all shared such really good digital teaching practice, and just to commend you on all your hard work and all your great presentations this morning. So I let you, Carina, if you want to have a quick word, and then we're just going to advise everybody to be back at 2 o'clock.
Yeah, thanks so much. We're all blown away, and it's great that we've recorded these sessions, Annette. All the work here that's presented this morning, it's just amazing. It's fantastic. It's so inspiring. We've so much to learn from each other. And, you know, I'm just seeing a note even there from Koch, how invaluable this type of forum is. It's so true. And the more we can do this, the more we learn from each other. So thank you all. It's been an amazing showcase. I'm really looking forward to the recipes for success also this afternoon with our lovely special guest, Alexandra Pickett. Fair play to you, Alex, if you're still here. She's been up since 4 o'clock this morning following this, so from New York. So thank you, Alex. And at 2 o'clock, we're going to have our session with Alex, a keynote over an hour. There'll be 45 minutes of a keynote and then some questions and answers, and we'll finish at 3 o'clock. So thank you all. It'll be this link to join again. We leave it open anyways. It'll be the mic and sound will be just switched off. So thank you, everyone, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And Bula Bus.
Yes. Well done, everybody.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.
Do you want to stop the recording, Carina, and then restart again for Alex's?
I'm just sorry. I was just going to do that. Yeah. No.
Okay.
We'll have